as you can see, that's my ident, so I wanted to go for something quite natural and neutral, something that didn't really relate to my idea. It was kind of like, so the production company makes a lot of different films, so therefore it has quite a neutral image to it, and like classic black contrasting white, so it stands out. And obviously the E is for Electric Productions, which is an important factor because obviously it's the start of the name. As you can hear, there's ticking of a clock, which is all about the emphasised sounds. And obviously the relation to Spider-Man is shown through the close-up intense shots that you can see, like the one now. So yeah, obviously the relation between Charlie and Spider-Man and some similarities of the way that they feel things and how they're sensitive to sounds and um, feelings. Done a lot of pans introducing the room in the setting. As you can see, the stripes on the blind that actually make considerable, because obviously you can see the stripes on the bed sheet as well. Again, another shot of Spider-Man. It's comic type things. Let the audience know that he does have comics, so he's a real big fan of Spider-Man. Again, it's another close-up shot. I use quite a lot of close-up shots in this to almost create intensity and show importance. I used a lot of fades in and fades out to make the first couple of shots really soft, because there's nothing really happening at the moment. It's just a boy in a room, so the fade in and fade outs are make the transitions quite smooth. Obviously, I included facts in this, so this is one of them, and there's a couple more to come. I used a lot of point of view shots as well, to almost put the audience in the eyes of Charlie, which is what I wanted to do. So yeah, I used a lot of point of view shots. I wanted to relate the sound to the outside, so I recorded some outside sounds, for example birds, which you can hear at the moment. So I decided to introduce that when the window scene, the window pan is introduced, because it relates. Also gives the idea that that's what Charlie can hear. He can hear the things that are outside because he's so sensitive to those sounds. You're also introduced to sound of traffic, which is also another outside sound. Again, you can see the stripes, so they all link, and it's very much the same colours. So it's blues, a bit of red, obviously, Spider-Man, and it's very quite bright. I decided to have a close-up shot of him brushing the bed sheets to almost emphasise his perfection, the way that he wants things to be specifically placed. So him brushing down the sheets makes him almost, the lines have to be in straight, like parallel to each other. So him brushing down the sheets make it so that can happen. and obviously you can hear the sound of him brushing his hands against the sheets as well, which is almost um, creates the idea that the audience knows what he's feeling, because people relate that sound to that action. Another close up of Spider-Man, and like figures and stuff, which is commonly found in his room, and you see the red and the blue there as well. So the blue of the sheets and the red of his trousers, and obviously the Spider-Man figures around the room. That was another emphasised sound, him pulling out the drawer. Um, I managed to capture that when I was filming this shot. All I had to do was emphasise it a bit in audition, and it was perfectly fine to use. As you can see on the side there, he's got a lot of figures, um, like from films. So you can see like the TARDIS from Doctor Who, so it relates to science and things like that. I kind of like the idea of Sheldon Cooper in The Big Bang Theory, and the way that he quite likes sci-fi and things like that, which is why I decided to include sci-fi like memorabilia within his room. I also included books in the corner which relate to space, and also superhero based. There's also a pan of Lego, which highlights his age, and the way that he likes to play and build things. That's the reason why I wanted to have a boy actor, was because the fact was that boys are 4 times more likely to have autism than girls, which I found really interesting. I wanted to incorporate that into my film. You can see here he's brushing down his clothes, and he's making so they're perfect, and it these shots are really bright because I wanted to emphasize his sensitivity to light, um, because it is commonly found in autistic people that they are very sensitive to light, which is so I wanted to emphasize that within my footage. Due to this fact, I wanted to not have Charlie speaking throughout the whole film. I just wanted the idea of his autism to come across in his actions and within the emphasized sounds. I like this shot especially because it focuses a lot on the laces, which I found really interesting, because when we were filming, I wanted Charlie to have a specific way of tying his shoelaces, because I thought that would be really interesting in the way that it creates the idea that he's unique, and he's very set in his ways, and he has his own order to things. So as you can see, he is laying everything out on the bed in specific order, which does relate to the stereotype of an autistic person, which is obviously what I wanted to capture. And you could hear the tying of the tightening of the shoelaces there, which is obviously another emphasized sound. By these shots, when they as they kind of go on, they introduce you a bit more of Charlie. So obviously I've had close-up shots and shots of the room, and then obviously you get introduced to the one where he's laying out stuff on the bed, and that's the first full shot you see of him. And then we go back down to these small, tighter shots when he's putting on his clothing to emphasize the feeling that he feels when putting his arm through his jacket, when he's putting on his trousers, and then obviously his shoes later. as you can see, the clothing is very plain, um, black and white, which relates to the idea of him seeing in black and white, and very straightforward. Everything's either one way or the other. There's no in between. When I was filming it, I wanted Zefan, the actor, to overemphasize him feeling his clothes. So we did several shots of him feeling his clothes because I wanted to capture the the idea of him taking in the textures and the different surfaces that he could feel. I used a lot of slow motion stuff as well. So a lot of the shots that I did film, I slowed down. A lot of the pans actually, and this one was one of them where I actually replayed it. So I filmed him brushing his arm downwards, but then I replayed it so he went upwards, which I thought worked really well. Yeah. I also experimented with depth of field. So in that part shot, you can see that I focused the camera on the bed sheets, so he was almost blurred in the background. I just thought this would be really quite interesting, almost have a little bit of a play around when filming, and I ended up using it in my film. Again, there's another close-up shot with the shoes. This is one of the shots you see on my magazine review, and I say about his unique way of tying his shoelaces. And I really like this intensely close-up shot to almost emphasize the way he does his shoelace and the way that the sound comes across to him. So when he pulls it tight, obviously you can hear the sounds of the shoelaces together, and obviously you go to see him tie his shoelace and obviously the sound of it. I used slow motion there again. I thought it went really nice with the music as well, because obviously the music's quite slow. So I thought the slow motion went really nice with that. You can see here he's tidying up his hair to put everything right in its place, like I said earlier. Again, you see the repetition of the stripes. This time it's black and white, but you do see the repetition of the stripes in the bedroom coming down. Almost, he follows them. So you see the stripes coming off the bed, he's following the stripes there, and now he's coming down the stairs. As you come down the stairs, you can hear the voices building, and there's also footsteps that you hear coming down the stairs as well. I wanted to emphasise the idea of him when he's in his room. There's hardly any sounds which almost trigger him, but as he comes downstairs into reality, when he's confronting other people, confronting other people's lives, he is introduced to new sounds, he's introduced to new atmosphere, which is something that he's not always comfortable with. So again, the sounds are getting louder, and as he walks, I really like the shot and the way that he walks towards the camera and it goes out of focus, because it's almost like he is becoming that he doesn't fit in there because he doesn't feel comfortable. And you see, you have the stress ball, which is obviously one of the coping mechanisms autistic people have. Not necessarily just autistic people, but it is known to be one of the greatest coping mechanisms. I also slowed that shot down a bit as well to make it more dramatic. Again, the camera pulls into focus there on his face, and I wanted to use the tight shots to obviously emphasize his emotion and his reaction here. Also to add like dramatic effect. You see here he begins to rock, which is obviously one of the things I said about him rocking and screaming, and you can hear him breathing as well. Start to breathe, and his heartbeat. But I wanted to use flash shots between him almost not coping with it, almost settling down, and him panicking. And then I wanted to calm it all down for this, because you see everything's cut precisely. So obviously he's got a piece of toast cut into fours, orange juice in a clear glass, and obviously on a Spider-Man plate. So he's calmed down now, and his the plate is like Spider-Man's there, kind of like calming him down, and obviously his mum sat opposite to him as well. You only see a little bit of her because obviously I wanted to emphasize him, but she's always also wearing plain clothes to almost make the transition easier for him. But with the titles now, it's you know his name, you're knowing a bit more about him, and you can just hear the clock. I wanted this pan of the superheroes to be almost the last image because I wanted to highlight the idea that people with autism can be are more than what people believe. They are almost, even though they are different, but they're not different in a bad way. They're like almost superhuman in the way that they understand things. And just because they experience world in a different way doesn't mean that they are different, and they should be seen as different. Um, so I just wanted to leave the audience with an idea of almost Charlie being a superhero, or he sees himself as a superhero, and he shouldn't be seen as different because of that. And the clock fades out, which I quite like because it works really well with the music and the titles. As you see, the credits are panning up, which they typically do at the end of a film. But I didn't want any music over this because I think it would have spoiled the ending of the